Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Deneen Borelli. I'm a representative of Project 21 and the National Center of Public Policy Research. They are shareholders here from New York. And my question is, originally, this is regarding cap and trade. Originally, Obama was going to auction off carbon credits for cap and trade, and the revenue would have gone to the government. But under the Waxman-Markey legislation, the utilities sector stands to gain 35 to 40% of carbon credits. Can you explain to me what the dollar value means to Duke based on the percentage of carbon credits you stand to gain?
That's a very good question. We oppose the notion of auctioning the credits because the money would have gone to government. It would have gone through the appropriations process. And originally, it was designed to be used for purposes other than addressing the carbon issue. Under the allowance program, the money goes directly to our customers because those allowances allow us to operate our plants. So we as a company don't profit from the allocation of allowances. Those allowances under the Waxman law go directly to our customers. They get the full benefit of it going forward. And for our customers in states like Indiana, where 95 to 96% of the electricity comes from coal, it really mitigates the cost increases that are inevitable as we move to a low-carbon world.
Well, it's been researched that cap and trade would result in higher energy costs.
That's right.
Which means, okay, so you just said that we should get away from government dependence. I mean, essentially, this sounds like a bailout to me for your consumers who would necessarily want lower energy costs, especially if you're on a fixed income and in our economy where we have 10% unemployment. So it seems kind of counterproductive to me that you would lobby for this, but then have the government provide this bailout for your consumers.
Let me kind of put it in a different context. It really gets back to that balancing affordable, reliable, and clean. What we see, while the real price of electricity has been flat for the last 50 years, we see the real price of electricity actually increasing. We also believe that it's important to address the carbon issue because our country is going to have carbon regulation at some point in the future, if you'd agree with me on that. And we're going to have tighter regulations on SOx, NOx, and mercury. What we've tried to do is get the roadmap in place so we can make the smart choices in a timely way to minimize the cost impact on customers going forward. We don't want to get 20 years into this or 10 years into modernizing our system and they change the rules on us. The allowance system, and this is a very important point, this is a system that worked incredibly well for SO2. And the Clean Air Act amendments in 1990, they put a cap on the emissions of SO2, and the cap came down over time. We reduced the emissions of SO2 70%, and we used the allowances to protect our customers from higher prices until the technology could be developed, installed, and as a consequence of that, we were able to do this over a 19-year period with a 70% reduction and smooth out the cost impact on consumers. In the same way, we're taking the very same approach to this cap and trade and applying it to carbon, and it's really all about, as you think through it, protecting consumers, protecting low income, protecting fixed income consumers as we retool, modernize, and decarbonize our generation fleet in the future.
So there isn't a dollar amount that you can compare what the percentage of Duke is to receive?
It really depends on what the future carbon prices will be. We don't know yet with respect to what they will be. We just know we'll get allowances. And another way to think about it is It just allows us to run our coal units and our gas units, which emit CO2, without having to buy allowances in the market, which again protects low income, protects fixed income people, and protects our industry. Because under the program that was originally suggested, the money was going to go to Washington, it was going to get in appropriations, and they were going to, and we were going to be the bad guys and collect the tax effectively, and they were going to send the checks back, but only send the checks back to residential consumers and ignore industrial America. So this allowance program that was in Waxman-Markey protects not just residential consumers, but also protects the businesses and industry across our country as we make this transition.
But just one more point, because you mentioned that you don't want to be the bad guy. Unfortunately, partnering with the government, you're going to end up being the bad guy anyway. If you look at what happened with the banking industry, the mortgage industry, and the automotive industry. So you may think it's a good thing to do at the moment, but when higher energy costs kick in, they're going to blame you. And that's all I had to say. Thanks.
Well, you know what the good news is? I used to be a consumer advocate fighting rate increases to utility companies. I've come a long way, haven't I? But the reality is the real price of electricity is going to go up with or without carbon. I sent a memo to our board, and I think you'll appreciate this. And I said, and it was a quote where this author said, I wake up every morning wondering what I'm dead wrong about. And I said, well, what if I received irrefutable evidence that the IPCC report was wrong, carbon was not a problem, what would we change in what we're doing today? And guess what? Virtually nothing. Because we're building 2 coal plants so we can retire old plants. We'll build 1,400 megawatts roughly. We'll retire a similar amount. We are modernizing our grid with our smart grid and with smart meters. And we are building gas plants to meet the growing demand. So as I look at what we're doing today, how we're taking money and deploying it, we would virtually do the same under a carbon regime. The only real difference probably would be is we wouldn't do a CCS, or carbon capture and sequestration project, in Indiana. Is there another question?